everyone, and welcome to the April edition of Connecting Japan for 2024, and we are going to talk a little bit about all the stuff that we've been doing in cross culture since the start of February. Joining me today, of course, is Colleen, who's been part of our adventures as well. And of course we have our fairy assistant here, Charlotte, as always. And as you can tell, we're all rugged up and the weather has been nice and cold. So some of the questions our friends, our Australian friends and rest of you have been asking, as well as those who are Japanese friends on this channel, is what is cross culture, what are the things that we're involved in, and what are our opinions and thoughts about it now after attending it for a few months. So cross culture's been around for about 100 and so years. The church that they currently exist on is in Little Lonsdale Street in the city. If you haven't watched, check one of our old videos that we did not that long ago that showed you what the church looked like. Initially it started out as a church for Chinese, because the Chinese during the gold rush era had all come to Australia in search of fame and fortune, and the church's position in the city made it a perfect place for people to come and learn English and also learn about Jesus Christ. So from a humble beginnings, a small group, it's now flourished into a church that not only helps out Japanese, it also encompasses a lot of other nationalities as well, including Japanese. They run small groups, so these small groups are sort of help connect people who would probably not always come to a full-on church setting. They usually run those sometime about 10ish on a Sunday, or it runs probably up until about lunchtime, which is about midday. They also have a nice lunch on around about that time too. For about $9 Australian, you can get a really nice Asian meal. Very healthy, very good. I've tried it a few times. At the recording of this video, last Sunday's was gyudon, which was pretty good. They also run an English corner, which we've never attended because it's a long way to go on a Thursday night. So that is open to all international visitors. So usually many of our Japanese friends usually attend that. That's their first stop. They have conversations with people from all over that where their language skills are really good, or they're just beginning, gives them an opportunity, and they get invited to either a gathering, which is at the start of any calendar month, or they come to an English conversation, which is the second week in the calendar month on the Sunday. So it depends on when they come. So if they come to a gathering, usually everyone signs in. We usually try and write our name in Japanese as well as English. So especially important for people who don't understand English all that well, or they're at the absolute beginner stage, and that just helps them. It's generally a time that you get to mingle with different people. We don't always get to stay while I know some of them pretty well now. We always are separated into different groups. Colleen's been to a few of the gatherings. Yep. And there's a lot of fun. One of our ones was the emoji game that you saw in a previous video. That
was the first one, I think.
Yeah. Really tricky. Really fast-paced game, which is a lot of fun for English and Japanese alike. Last gathering we did, have you done certain things, like have you been to the Grampians, which is a very popular place in the country, lots of mountains, a lot of waterfalls. If you had done that, you had to move to another group, so we were all moving around and getting to know each other. So a lot of these games are always different every single time, and it's also times for discussion as well. Now with the gathering, you can speak Japanese and English, so you're allowed to be bilingual in the gathering, and there is a 10 to 15 minute time of Pastor Takeshi, who's the pastor of cross culture, the Japanese area. He gets to speak, and there's also a couple of songs that if you've seen the conference video that we did, they were in English and Japanese, so people can sing along whether you're in English or Japanese. And then if they come to the gathering, they're invited to come to an English conversation class. English conversations has a lot more structure to it. Like, the gathering can get really crazy. Both of them have afternoon tea. The afternoon tea is a little bit more formal in the gathering sense. In the English conversations, it's a little bit it's a bit more casual and relaxed. However, there are rules. You got to speak English in an English conversation and keep your Japanese words to a minimum. So Colleen and I both had Japanese speakers where certain words didn't have a translation, or they had difficulty finding the right word for. So grain was one we had this week.
Yeah.
And we actually had to look up that word, to give them an idea what that meant, because wheat's not something they have a lot of in Japan. Well, they don't really use that too often.
And also grain's like a kind of a category thing, like legumes, so it's kind of not easy to sort of like be like, oh, grain is this thing. It's like a group of things.
Yeah, and greed was a word that we found that was a concept. While it does exist in Japan, it's not something people readily admit to. So apart from that, obviously, we have to talk about 25% of the time, and the Japanese are invited to talk 75% of the time. So it can cover a whole raft of things about what anime they like. Anime and manga is obviously big conversation starters in an English conversation class. The Sunday before, we were talking about books and what kind of books we like, and there's bingo questions at the back where you pick a question about your theme. One of them was, what was the last book you read? Is there a book that you never finished? And there's a whole group of questions, and both Japanese and the person who's looking after that Japanese, because usually it's 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, they get to pick which one, and then we talk about those. There's always some activities where there's words to scramble. The other rule is we can't use slang words or idioms, although some of the worksheets we get do have idioms that we use, but they're ones we commonly use in Australia. So letting the cat out the bag was one we used in the last one of the last English conversations, and explaining that kind of concept to the Japanese is kind of a difficult one. But it's a lot of fun. Then we, if we have time, we talk about different things. I always invite the Japanese to be part of my Line account. Now why people have asked about that, sorry guys, it's only for Japanese, so that's what we use it for. But I do have a WhatsApp app that I use, that it's our Connecting Japan's now got a WhatsApp app, and we're only giving it out to specific people, so try not to inundate us too much on that one. I'm only using it for specific people right now. So the English conversation is run every second Sunday, and then every fourth Sunday. In the midst of all that, the one that's coming up this week is called a bilingual church service. Usually it's, unlike the gathering and the English conversations, it's not jam-packed full of people, but it's a rather cozy, intimate church setting. There's a couple of songs that are sung, and scriptures are read both in English by an English speaker, and of course a Japanese person will read the scripture in Japanese. And Pastor Takeshi will also speak a little bit as well, and then we'll have times of discussion and times to get together. There are other activities that they do. They actually have some activities that they take the Japanese with. Some of them go to coffee after some of these sessions, because they run between 1:30 and 3:30. A lot of Japanese can't stay around because they're working on a working holiday, so they might be working at restaurants or in other industries, and they will have to go to work. So it's a lot of fun. We've made lots of good friends. I've actually had my first Hello Talk friend. So he's from Kyoto. Kay is from Kyoto, which is a more conservative, old style city compared to a lot of Japanese cities. You've probably heard that in the news recently that parts of Kyoto have been closed off to the tourists because these are areas where they still perform tea ceremonies and have other personal things where they don't want the tourists to go.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful part of Japan. So he's a very laid back, relaxed, fun guy. So when you think you've got Japanese all read and you understand what they're like, they always surprise you. That's one of the things I love about them. I have another friend coming to Melbourne in a matter of months called Tatsuya. He's from Itami, which is further north. It's a very small Japanese town, so we're looking forward to seeing him. The Japanese are invited to come to bilingual services. We generally find it's usually those who are truly interested and intrigued about the Christian faith that come along to this. So it's a good opportunity. Do you get to talk about the gospel message in English conversations and the gathering? Those conversations do come up from time to time. The scriptures say we have to have an answer for everything. So we make lifelong friends. Now, of course, how long do Japanese spend in Australia? It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 months. Some of them stay for about a year. Kay is going to be in Australia for about a year, which is pretty exciting. So working holidays, students, and those who are learning here, most of them are learning English and some other skills, and then they usually go back to Japan. But some of them, like Kay, hasn't made up his mind yet, so I would be sad for all the Japanese to come here. But the reality is the economy over in Japan right now is going through a lot of changes. They're actually going through an election right now. So there's their currency. If you want to go to Japan, now's a good time because the currency is the lowest it's been in 34 years.
100 yen to the dollar.
Yeah, that's right. That's what Colleen is saying. So if you're going to get currency to go to Japan, now's a good time to get it, because everything has an ebb and flow. Once that bounces back up again, then things are going to cost a lot more. I think that's all we can share with you. About anything you want to share about your time at the English conversation and the gathering that you thought was cool, Colin?
Well, like with the English gathering, if you're struggling to converse, they do provide talking points, and there's also like a bunch of Christian talking points and discussion points. Like there's like a lesson, I think is what we had. We had like a biblical lesson. It was basically like reading comprehension in school, where it's like you have the thing and then you have questions based on what you read, and you can use that as a jumping off point to discuss the Bible. And also in the bilingual service, there's a lot of Japanese.
Yeah.
And I mean by like speaking Japanese.
During the English conversation, they basically say you can talk about literally anything you want. The lesson that they provide is more for a talking point if you get stuck, because sometimes, especially the Japanese that have very little English, they will sometimes struggle to want to talk, because the Japanese like to be able to speak well, and if they're struggling, they will stop and really they'll just be thinking about, how do I say this well? What do I have to say? How do I put this into words that will come across well? And so that can sometimes take them time. So if you've got this sheet of just talking points about a particular lesson and subject, you can just use that as a jumping off point. The fella that I was talking to at the last English conversation, Yusuke, he was quite the manga reader. He has, back in Japan, he has over 500 manga in his collection. So that was a talking point that kept coming up over and over in the conversation. It's like we used the lesson, but we also spoke about other things that had nothing to do with the lesson. And the good thing is too that when you get to the end of the lesson and it's got the small section on the Bible verses, it has the verses written in English and then also in Japanese, which you encourage them to read it in English first, but then if there's parts they're struggling with, they can also look through the Japanese version to help them get some clarity on it. So, the English classes are really quite good. And it was Yusuke's second time there, and he's very keen to come back again. He's actually in Australia studying English, been here since September last year, going back to Japan maybe in October. They do seem to quite enjoy their life when they head out to other countries around the world and look at doing things. So his plan is to go back in October, but of course he's still got some time till that happens, and he may decide to extend his stay, and who knows what. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so one of the things that, while the Japanese want to get their English perfected, we also, when we try and talk to them, we have the similar issue trying to have speak our Japanese as well. So to put into perspective, we're all at different, all of us here on the couch are all at different stages at our Japanese.
Charlotte's not real good at it yet, but she's getting there. She's getting there.
You're doing it.
But yeah, I'm sort of about here.
I'd say he's probably absolute beginner N5.
Absolute beginner. I'm actually looking at going to the Nunawading School of Japanese, which is a bit of a drive for us from here. But I really find that I need more face-to-face direct learning rather than online training and stuff. It doesn't seem to work for me. So we'll see what happens. I've got to look into the costings, and they do run it on different nights and stuff. So I can try and find one in particular that will work for me. But yeah, I definitely want to at least get some basics so that I'm not just sitting there going, I have absolutely no idea what's being said.
Ask Charlotte to teach you. She's Nihongo Jersey.
And we will leave a link to that school if you're interested in it for yourselves. It's in Victoria, so for our other people watching from other states in Australia, you'll have to look for something of that equivalent.
Which I'm sure there's plenty around.
In your state, but it's a really good one. Well, that's all from us here at Connecting Japan. Keep an eye on our socials for what we're up to next. As of the 21st of April, we will be back in the city, all of us. So
Trying out another place. That's one thing. Most Sundays we go in, we pick a different place to eat at.
Yep.
For lunch. So we've trialed quite a few different restaurants and stuff so far.
Yep.
Some pretty good. Some, I can't say we've had a bad one, but
No.
there's certainly been levels of good and really good.
Salt Cafe was really good. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the croissant, the ham and cheese croissant was so good. Oh,
Yeah.
Charlotte wants to come back in.
So yeah, check our socials for what we've been up to, like where we've visited and in the city and our recommendations. What will we talk about in the next YouTube video?
Charlotte.
Puppy dog.
I'm not sure what we'll be talking about. Maybe if our Japanese friends are amenable, we might be able to actually interview some of them and ask them their opinions of what they think of Australia and how their experiences have been
And of
here
course,
in Australia so far.
if we can manage that, we will have to check with them too if they've tried Vegemite.
Ah.
That's obviously the big question we're going to have to ask.
It's disgusting.
All right, so thank you guys so much. We'll be at you in the next video. Again, check our socials. We are on Instagram, Facebook. You're watching us on YouTube. And we also have WhatsApp. And yeah, check out our website as well. We've got lots of blogs and stories up there. And
Check out Charlotte's Instagram.
Yeah, Charlotte does have her own Instagram.
yeah. And don't forget, if you haven't looked at our calendar, 19th of May is the next Japanese festival at the Box Hill Town Hall. We'll definitely be there to enjoy all that has to offer. So from all of us here, John Martinet, see you next time. Bye bye.
Oh, okay.